Hello, great minds. I welcome you to yet another interesting class in history. In today's lesson, you will learn about museum as a means of assessing sources of history. And under that, we shall discuss the meaning of museum, the types of museums, and the various museums we have in Nigeria. And we shall also move further to discuss the importance of museum in assessing sources of history. So get your writing materials and let's go to class. So what is a museum? A museum is a building in which objects of historical, cultural, scientific, and artistic interest are stored and exhibited. Alright, now let's talk about the various types of museums that we have. We have art gallery or art museum. We have scientific museums, archaeological museums, and agricultural museums. Art museums or art gallery is a museum that stores and exhibits artworks, various artworks. It could be painting, it could be sculpturing, it could be molding. These museums store various artworks or various works of art. Next up, we'll discuss archaeological museum. An archaeological museum is a place where artifacts that have been discovered by archaeologists are kept and exhibited for the view of the public. Alright, now let's talk about an agricultural museum. Just like the name implies, the museum is a place where agricultural implements, that is, farming tools, are kept and exhibited for the view of the public. While the last we have here is the scientific museum. The scientific museum is a place where discoveries that have been discovered by scientists are kept and showcased to the view of the public. Alright, now that being said, let us look at the various museums we have in Nigeria. We have the Benin City National Museum in Benin, Edo State, World Residency Museum in Calabar, Slave Trade Museum in Calabar, Esi Museum in Kwara State, Gidan Makama Museum in Kano State. We also have the Jos Museum, and we have Kaduna Museum. We also have Kanta Museum in Kebbi State. National Gallery of Modern Art is a museum that is located in Lagos State. We have the Nigerian National Museum in Umuahia, the Oron Museum in Akwa Ibom State, Owo Museum in Ondo State. We have the Niger Delta Museum. We have the War Museum Umuahia in Abia State, and the National Museum of Colonial History in Abia State. Right, these are the various museums we have in Nigeria. Now let's talk about the importance of museum in assessing sources of history. Museums play a crucial role in preserving local culture with careful documentation and artifact preservation. A culture can be recorded and remembered regardless of its future. It can also be shared and understood by those from different cultural backgrounds. One of the major importance of museum is that they document daily life. Museums help in recording everyday life within a culture, and with the rate at which cultures are disappearing these days, careful preservation of daily life is the only hope a heritage group has for recovering its history. Daily life encompasses rituals, religion, food, arts, and any other aspect that makes up a culture. And regardless of what type of museum it is, this museum has some cultural artifacts, arts, music, or technology that are displayed to preserve culture. Another importance of museum is that they educate others on local culture. In order for a culture to be respected and survive globalization, those of the dominant culture must be educated about minority culture and their way of life. The best way to do this is through a respectful display of local culture in a museum. With an educated populace who respect minority culture, culture loss suddenly finds itself decreasing. Furthermore, museums are a wonderful place to take children for both fun and education. So it means going to the museum, that is, a visit to the museum, educates us and also broadens our knowledge on various aspects of the society. We learn knowledgeable things in a museum. Another importance of a museum is that they display alternative perspective on history. Museums display histories, timelines, and perspectives that we have never heard or seen before, potentially altering the mindset of people who have simply never been educated outside their culture. And these are things that as humans we are supposed to know. When we visit a museum and see these various artifacts, it gives us an insight of how things were before we were born, and it gives us almost a first-hand information of how life was even before we came into existence. Another importance of a museum is that they connect those of different backgrounds. Two types of people will visit a museum in search of information on other culture: people with that heritage and people interested in learning about that heritage who come from a different background. Museum focus on heritage and culture bring people together, creating a network of support for different minorities and groups. However, it should be noted that museums and their patrons are crucial components in the effort to prevent culture and language loss. Now, with this, we've come to the end of today's lesson, and I hope you've learned a lot. Just a quick recap of what we have discussed so far. We have talked about the meaning of museum, which we said is a building in which objects of historical, artistic, scientific, or cultural interest are kept and exhibited or displayed. We have also went further to talk about the various types of museums, and we talked about the various museums we have in Nigeria, and we've also lastly discussed the various importance of museum and how it helps us in assessing sources of history. Thank you very much for watching and listening. Goodbye and stay safe. I'll see you in our next class.